Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to walk through makeslide, a tool designed to turn presentation files into voice-enabled learning materials. At its core, makeslide helps you generate presentations that already include narration, so your slides are not just visual documents, but something closer to a guided lesson.
Yeah, and what I like is that it's not only about adding a voice to slides. The visual here shows a laptop with a presentation, audio waveform, microphone icons, Q&A bubbles, and even a quiz card, so it's clearly built for teaching and interactive sessions.
Exactly. The main functions include generating voice presentations and supporting classroom-related features such as synchronized playback, real-time questions, and quizzes.
In other words, learners can follow the same pace, ask questions during the session, and check their understanding through quizzes. Pretty handy, especially for online or hybrid classes.
There's also an additional function, using the presentation content itself for question answering, so the slides become a knowledge base that people can ask about.
Nice. So before we explore how to use all these features, we'll first move into the installation and basic setup, including Docker, language settings, model providers, API keys, and voice personas.
Moving from the feature overview into the practical side, the setup starts with a Docker-based installation. The slide keeps it very direct. Create a folder with mkdirp home1, then run the container with the provided docker run command, mapping the workspace into /home/Jovian and exposing port 8888. And once it's running, you just open http:/127.0.0.1:8888 in the browser. I like how the left side uses big icons, Docker, a web link, and a gear, so the flow feels like install, open, configure. Very friendly. On the right, we see the actual AI settings panel. It includes the user code, which is the name used during synchronized playback, plus interface language and generated content language. Then comes the AI part. Choose the LLM provider, choose the text-to-speech provider, paste in API keys, and select models for text generation and voice generation. Finally, the voice persona settings let each speaker sound different, such as calm and professional for one host and lively or cheerful for another. Great. After setup is done, the next step is feeding the system with source materials, like documents, text, or even YouTube captions. Now that the system settings are in place, the next question is simple. What material do we give it? The workflow supports 3 main content sources, shown cleanly in the interface bar: PDF content, pasted text, and YouTube import.
Right, and I like how practical that is. For PDF, you can use regular papers, reports, or document-style materials, but also presentation files. So if you already have slides, you do not need to rewrite everything from scratch.
Exactly. Then there is text input. That text can come from any large language model, or it can be generated directly inside the interface. This makes it flexible when the source is not a file, but an outline, a draft, or prepared talking points.
And for YouTube, the system can import subtitles from videos. That is super useful if your source is a lecture, interview, tutorial, or webinar.
So before entering the main workspace, the key idea is choose the right source format first. Then the system can process it into podcast-ready material.
After that, we can move into the main interface and see how these imported materials are organized.
Now that the materials have been imported, they all land in the main interface. Think of it as the control center, where you can quickly check what files are already inside the system and what stage they are in.
Right, and at the top left, there is a category selector. It works like a folder or filter. For example, if Recent Slides is selected, the interface only shows the slide decks that were recently added or processed.
That makes navigation much cleaner, especially when there are many presentations. Instead of searching one by one, you narrow down the list first.
Then the main area shows presentation cards. Each card has a thumbnail, title, category, creation time, page count, and a status label like ready, so you can immediately know which file can be used next.
You can also duplicate or delete a deck directly from the card. After choosing the right presentation, the next step is to use its content to generate a script and audio.
After selecting an existing deck, the workflow moves into using a presentation PDF as the source. The key point is simple. The system does not need to rebuild the slides from scratch. It reads and uses the presentation content directly, then generates the transcript and audio from that material. Right, so if you already have a clean slide deck, this is the faster path. I can see the upload area on the left, with options like PDF content, process slide by slide, and upload PDF. It feels pretty straightforward. Bring in the deck, decide how it should be processed, and then let the system prepare the speaking script. The settings panel on the right is where the generation style becomes important. You can give extra instructions, choose a content style such as classroom, business, or podcast, and decide whether the tone should be more formal, friendly, or conversational. And there are voice settings too. It currently supports 2 personas, which is useful for dialogue-style audio like what we're doing now. There is also an image setting, mainly for future image generation or image modification. So the overall idea is use the existing slides, configure the style, voice, and image preferences, then start generation. Next, we'll see how the process changes when the source is not a slide deck, but a research paper PDF.
Now, the workflow shifts from an existing slide deck to an academic paper PDF. The idea is very similar, but the system has to do more interpretation first. After the PDF is uploaded, it reads the paper content, then recreates presentation visuals based on that material.
Right, and I like how the visual example makes that clear. On the left, there's a clean presentation preview with bullet points, and on the top you can see options like PDF content and upload PDF. So it feels like you are feeding the paper in, then letting the tool turn it into something presentation ready.
Exactly. After the visuals are recreated, the system can also generate the transcript and the audio from the same source. So instead of manually rewriting a paper into slides, narration, and voiceover, the process is bundled together.
And the settings panel on the right is where you control the style. You can choose a presentation tone, like classroom, business, or a podcast. You can also pick the voice mode, which currently supports 2 personas, and set an image style for future image generation or editing.
So in short, PDF input is not just file conversion. It is content understanding, slide rebuilding, script writing, and audio generation in one flow.
Next, we'll move from PDF-based generation to starting directly from text.
After the PDF workflow, the next entry point is much lighter, generating a presentation directly from text. Instead of uploading a document, you bring in structured content, usually an outline prepared with an LLM.
Right, and the key is structure. If you want the system to understand where one slide ends and the next one begins, you can write labels like Slide 01, Slide 02, and so on. That way, the tool knows how to split the material into separate pages.
On the interface, we can see an Import Pasted Text area. It also reminds first-time users of the basic flow. Prepare API keys, choose the import source, start processing, and then move to the play page for adjustments.
There are 2 import methods too. One option is to paste existing text directly. The other is to generate from a prompt, meaning the AI helps build the outline first, then continues through the text upload workflow. The example shown uses a YOLO V12 presentation outline, with each slide title and supporting points already separated. Once the content is ready, the user simply submits the text. And next, we'll look at how to let the system help create that outline more actively, instead of writing everything from scratch.
Now, instead of only pasting a prepared outline, the workflow can also begin with a prompt. The interface highlights the option called Generate from a Prompt, which means the user can describe the topic, audience, slide count, and key points. Then let the AI build the first outline draft.
Right, and I like that it's not a one-shot thing. In the AI outline chat area, you can keep asking for changes, like making it 10 pages, adding a comparison section, or adjusting the tone for younger students, so it feels more like chatting with an editor than filling out a fixed form.
On the right side, the current slide outline updates as the conversation continues. The user can still review it manually, making sure the slide titles and supporting bullets match the intended structure.
And when everything looks good, just click the green Create Slides from this outline button. Then the system moves from planning into presentation generation.
After that, the experience shifts from building the deck to checking how the generated result can be played and reviewed.
After the slides are generated, the workflow lands in the player interface, where the user can review the presentation as an actual playable lesson rather than just a deck of slides.
Right, and it feels like a control room. In the center, you can preview the current slide, press play, move forward or backward, and check whether the narration, timing, and subtitles line up smoothly.
Below the preview area, there is also a transcript section. That is important because the generated voice depends heavily on the script. If the wording sounds awkward, or if a sentence needs to be clearer, the transcript can be adjusted before continuing. And on the right side, you can see slide management tools and interactive areas, like places for audience questions or real-time activity. So it is not only for watching, it is also for checking, refining, and preparing the presentation for sharing. Exactly. Once the playback quality looks stable, the next step is to use the surrounding tools to export, test, or share the finished result.
After checking that the playback is stable, the toolbar becomes the main control center for finishing and distributing the presentation. Along the top, you can see buttons for full screen, regenerating video, creating quizzes, downloading files, and sharing the final link.
Right, and I like how visual it is. The icons on the left match the actions: expand for full screen, a video symbol for regeneration, a question mark for quiz creation, download arrows, a PDF icon, and a link icon. So even before reading the full description, users can roughly understand what each tool does.
Full screen is useful when you want to review the images in a cleaner view, and you can also control the interface with the keyboard. If the presentation is ready, Regenerate Video converts it into a downloadable video file.
And if you want interaction, Generate Quiz creates questions based on the presentation content. Then Download Video saves the generated video, while Download Handout creates a PDF that includes both the slides and the transcript.
Finally, Create Share Link makes it easy for external users to open the presentation. Once these output options are clear, the next step is adjusting the slide structure itself.
After the output options, the workflow naturally moves into slide management. Here, the key idea is control. You are not locked into the first version the system creates.
Right. 你可以 add new slides, something is missing, delete slides that feel unnecessary, and drag the order around so the story flows better. That thumbnail grid on the right makes it pretty easy to see the whole deck at a glance.
The buttons at the top also show the main actions clearly: regenerate, add, and delete. Regenerating all slides is especially useful when you want a different visual style, or when the presentation needs to be converted into another spoken language.
But if you only want to tweak one slide, you do not need to rebuild everything. You can use the chat area below for a more targeted edit.
And notice the message near the bottom. The selected slide can be used as the cover. So slide order and selection also affect how the final presentation is introduced.
Next, we will move from managing the slide structure into editing the actual content, like visuals and transcript details.
After arranging the slide structure, the next step is refinement. On the left, the key idea is very clear. You are not limited to accepting the first result. You can edit the image, revise the transcript, or use questions to collect more context before making changes.
Right, and I like how the interface shows that workflow visually. The clean white content area lists the 3 editing principles, while the dark Q&A panel on the right feels like a control center. You can type a question, give transcript editing instructions, or ask the system to help you think through improvements.
The important part is how the system edits. When you make a request, it sends the original image, outline, and transcript to the LLM, so the model understands the existing material and updates it based on what is already there.
In other words, it is more like asking an assistant to revise your draft, not asking it to start over from zero. That helps keep the style, structure, and topic consistent.
And from here, we can look more closely at how the image, outline, transcript, and audio are connected in the generation process. Continuing from that idea of revision, the workflow here becomes very clear. The system does not generate a full presentation in one single jump. It follows an order. First, it uses the prompt, or presentation outline, to create the images.
Right, and after the images are ready, the system combines those visuals with the outline to write the transcript.
Then the final step is turning that transcript into speech. So the image, text, and audio are all connected.
Exactly. In the interface, you can also see tabs like transcript, prompt, and system data. That means each part of the process can be inspected and adjusted separately.
And I like that it is not locked after generation. If the wording sounds too stiff, you can edit the transcript. If the direction is off, you can revise the prompt. You can also use the chat box on the right to ask the LLM for help.
After editing, the system can regenerate the speech based on the updated transcript instead of rebuilding everything from scratch.
So, in short, it is a flexible pipeline. Prompt to image, image and outline to transcript, transcript to audio. Next, we can move from generation logic into how users actually play, display, and control the presentation. Now that the content has been generated, edited, and converted into audio, the next step is the actual playback interface. The main image area shows the presentation visual, and underneath it, there is a synchronized transcript area. As the audio plays, the spoken text appears along with it, so viewers can follow both the picture and the narration at the same time. And the controls are pretty practical. You can drag the progress bar to adjust the playback position, just like using a normal media player. So if you missed a sentence, you do not need to restart everything. You can simply move back a little and listen again. There's also a QR code button. When pressed, the system generates a QR code for the presentation and displays it in the image area, making it easier to share access with an audience. I also noticed the full screen button above the controls. That is useful when presenting in a classroom or meeting room because the visual can take over the screen and feel more like a real slideshow. Finally, the settings section controls how the content is displayed and played. From here, we can naturally move into more detailed playback options, including local audio output and automatic page behavior.
Moving from the general display controls into playback behavior, the interface now focuses on two very practical options: local audio and continuous playback. At the top, we still see the familiar player controls, the timeline, and the total duration. But below that, there are switches that affect how the presentation behaves in a live environment.
Right, and the green label says Local Audio On, which means the sound is currently coming from the device you are using. But if you check Mute Local Audio, the audio from this device can be turned off. That sounds small, but it is super useful when you are broadcasting to other devices and do not want the presenter's computer to echo in the room.
Exactly. This is especially common with synchronous broadcast mode. The presenter may control the session while the sound is handled somewhere else or intentionally muted locally.
Then there is classroom mode. When it is disabled, the presentation can automatically move forward after the audio for one section finishes. But when the presenter wants to pause, explain, ask questions, or add examples, enabling classroom-style control gives them that breathing room.
So the key idea is control, whether sound plays locally and whether the flow continues automatically or waits for the speaker. Next, that control expands into synchronized access, where other participants can join through a shared entry point.
So after the presenter has control over timing and audio, the next step is getting everyone into the same session smoothly. I like that the interface makes it pretty direct. There is a sync mode option, plus buttons like Generate Link and Create Share Link.
Exactly. Once synchronization mode is enabled, the presenter can generate either a link or a QR code. That becomes the shared entry point, so participants do not need to search for files or guess where to go. They simply scan, click, and join the presentation environment. And when they join, they automatically become followers, right? So they can watch the slides move along with the speaker, but they do not get audio by default. Correct. That default muted behavior is important, especially in classrooms or live events. It prevents unexpected sound from coming out of multiple devices at once. In the control panel, you can even see the idea clearly. Student audio is muted by default, and followers are locked unless the presenter changes that setting. But if the session is online, the presenter can unlock student self-play mode. That means remote learners can turn on audio on their own device when needed.
Right. So the system supports both guided presentation and remote access. Everyone stays synchronized while the speaker still decides how much freedom participants have.
Nice. And once everyone is connected, that opens the door to more interaction, like gathering opinions from the audience in real time. From there, the interaction can become much more immediate. When the presenter wants to understand what the audience is thinking, they can set up a real-time poll directly inside the session.
Yeah, and it feels very straightforward. On the screen, you can see a poll panel where the host types in a question, like, "Do you agree with this statement?" Then the answer choices are listed right below, such as agree or disagree.
Exactly. After the question and options are ready, the presenter can start the poll and participants respond from their own devices. This is useful when you want quick feedback, not just passive listening.
And the best part is that the results are shown on the full screen presentation, so everyone can immediately see how the group is leaning, with vote counts and percentage bars updating visually.
That makes the discussion easier to guide. Instead of guessing the audience's reaction, the speaker gets a clear signal and can adjust the explanation based on real responses.
Right, and after collecting opinions, the next natural step is letting the audience raise questions, so the conversation can move from voting into deeper discussion.
After the polling stage, the interaction can move into a more open question and answer flow. In the interface, listeners have a clear input box where they can type a question for the speaker, then submit it directly.
Yeah, and I like that it is not just a free-for-all. The speaker still has control. After receiving a question, they can decide whether it should be shared with the whole audience, so the discussion stays focused and useful.
Exactly. That is important in a live talk or classroom setting. Some questions may be very specific, while others may help everyone understand the topic better. The speaker can choose what to bring forward.
And there is another helpful part. AI can also assist in answering audience questions. So when discussion gets busy, the speaker does not have to handle every response alone.
The illustration reinforces that idea nicely. A presenter at the front, audience members raising their hands, and icons for both questions and AI support. It shows a conversation supported by technology, not replaced by it.
Right, it makes participation easier and keeps the session moving. Then after interaction and discussion, the next step is about improving or regenerating the presentation content itself.
As we wrap up, the final step is about iteration. After building images, transcripts, audio, and audience interaction, you do not have to start from zero when something needs improvement. You can regenerate the entire presentation or choose only specific parts to update.
Exactly. And I really like how the visual makes that feel simple. On the left, the clean board lists the 3 key ideas, and those colorful building blocks at the bottom suggest that a presentation is something you can rebuild piece by piece.
On the right, the interface shows the practical controls. Images, transcripts, and audio can each be selected separately. Even better, every section can have its own prompt. So the image prompt can ask for consistent colors, the transcript prompt can request smoother connections, and the audio prompt can focus on sounding more natural and engaging.
So the big takeaway is AI is not just a one-time generator. It becomes a revision partner. You review, adjust the prompts, regenerate what needs work, and keep the parts that already fit.
Well said. From creation to interaction to regeneration, the whole workflow helps presenters move faster while still keeping control over quality, style, and message.
And that's the perfect place to end. Use AI to support your ideas, not replace your judgment.